Josh Maxwell stared out the viewport as the transport ship drifted closer to Zilaria. 7. The planet sparkled like a purple gemstone in the void, wrapped in swirling clouds of violet and lavender. To most, it would have looked breathtaking, but, to Josh, it was just another planet that wasn't Earth, wasn't home. Final approach to Zilaria 7 docking port, the AI announced in a voice too cheerful for space travel. All cultural exchange delegates, please prepare for arrival procedures. Josh let out a snort. Cultural exchange delegate. What a joke. He was a broke pizza chef from Brooklyn whose restaurant had gone under. The only thing he was exchanging was his dignity for 2 years of off-world contract work, a clean slate, and enough pay to dig himself out of debt. He reached into his jacket and thumbed the edges of the crumpled acceptance letter from the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. Most humans hadn't applied for the Zilaria program. The planet was infamous for its sterile utopia and lack of emotional expression. No crime, no war, no joy. Also, no men. You know they're all women, right? Marco, his old kitchen buddy, had asked when Josh told him about the assignment. Like, genetically, they phased out their males generations ago. Good for them, Josh had said, trying to play it cool. Maybe they'll finally appreciate someone who can make something besides those flavorless nutrient bricks. Now, as the ship's thrusters hummed for docking, his confidence was evaporating faster than water in a pizza oven. The ship clunked into the docking port, airlocks hissed. Lights blinked green. Welcome to Zilaria 7, the AI chimed. Atmosphere compatible. No adaptation period required. Josh grabbed his 2 allotted bags, one with clothes, one packed tightly with cooking tools and a few precious earth ingredients the diplomats had approved. Nana's old rolling pin, his best chef's knife, a vacuum-sealed brick of Parmesan, hidden in his socks. Please God, let customs miss that. The ramp hissed open. Josh stepped onto Zilarian soil, or rather, their sterile white docking floor. The air smelled faintly of lavender and ozone, clean to clean, like a hospital, pretending to be a garden. 3 figures waited at the base of the ramp, tall, imposing, inhumanly graceful. Zerians. They looked like the pictures he'd seen, but sharper, real. Their skin tones varied from soft lilac to deep plum. Their eyes shimmered in shades of amber and violet, and all 3 stared at him with quiet, eerie intensity. The tallest stepped forward. She was dark, violet, almost royal purple, with half-shaved silver-white hair and a muscular build that could bench-press a hovercar. I am Captain Zera of the Zarian Elite Guard, she said with military precision. State your designation and purpose. Josh clutched his bags awkwardly. Josh Maxwell, human culinary specialist, part of the cultural exchange program. Is that a question or a statement? She snapped. Statement. Definitely a statement, he replied with a forced grin. Sarah didn't smile. Extend your arm for scanning. He did, and a blue light swept his skin. Sarah frowned. No pathogens. No contraband. Elevated cortisol. Possible deception. I'm just nervous, Josh said. Humans often are during first contact. The second woman cut in. She was shorter, with intricate lavender braids coiled around her head like a crown and eyes as cool as amethyst. She held a glowing datapad. I am Nilari, cultural advisor. I will evaluate the exchange's effectiveness. Great, Josh thought. I'm a cooking experiment now. The third woman had remained silent, observing him with curious amber eyes. She wore a more elaborate outfit, accented with silver. Her skin shimmered like a deep plum wine. I am Zilaria, she said at last, voice smooth and reserved, heir apparent to the High Council. This exchange was my initiative. Expectations remain modest. Josh bowed slightly, remembering something from orientation. It's an honor, heir apparent. Zilaria nodded. Indeed it is. You are the first human male to set foot on our world in over 300 years. Some thought it was too great a security risk, Zilaria added. Josh glanced down at himself, Fiefton, scuffed shoes, Brooklyn attitude, bags under his eyes from the flight. I'm just here to cook. Precisely why you were deemed low risk, Zara said. Human males possess limited threat capacity compared to Zarian females. Josh blinked. Gee, thanks. You're welcome. They escorted him through the dock, past gleaming corridors, and into a waiting transport pod. Outside the transparent windows, the Zarian capital spread out like a utopia designed by an obsessive architect. Crystalline towers, floating gardens, no litter, no chaos. Your world is impressive, Josh offered, trying to break the silence. It functions at optimal efficiency, Zara replied flatly. I meant, it's beautiful. Beauty is a subjective construct, Zilaria said, tapping her pad. Your observation is noted for the exchange log. Josh sighed. This was going to be a long 2 years. When they reached his quarters, a pristine white and silver apartment that looked like an Apple store had married a hospital, Zara handed him a nutrient cube. Consume this before sleep for optimal function. Josh stared at the cube like it was a punishment. This is dinner. All required nutrition. Efficient, Zilaria said. I think I'll pass. Part of my job is to show you human food, right? Gotta stick with the real thing. The three women exchanged a look. It was unreadable, but not indifferent. As you wish, Zilaria said. Tomorrow, you will present your first culinary demonstration to the council. Josh froze. Tomorrow? I haven't even seen your kitchens. Your presentation is scheduled for midday. The council's time is valuable. Josh's mouth went dry. That's not enough prep time. Zara's brows pinched. Is this human incapable of adapting to basic schedules? Josh bristled. I can adapt just fine. Then adapt, Zilaria said firmly. You are expected to demonstrate Earth cuisine. That is your function. What kind of Earth cuisine? I specialize in pizza, but Zilaria tilted her head. Ah, yes. Circular carbohydrate discs topped with animal byproducts. Curious. It's pizza, Josh said with growing pride. One of the most loved foods on Earth. It's not just food. It's tradition, emotion, connection. Zara blinked. We evolved beyond the need for shared consumption rituals. Then you're about to evolve back, Josh muttered as they left. Josh sat on the edge of the too-firm bed and looked out at the alien skyline. Tomorrow, he'd cook pizza, and Zilaria 7 would never be the same. The kitchen laboratory, as the Zarians called it, looked like a space station had swallowed a hospital. Everything gleamed in sterile white. The counters weren't metal or stone, they were something smoother, more synthetic. Machines hummed silently, sealed containers lined the walls, and in the center sat Josh's unopened cooking case. At least that had made it. Captain Zara stood beside him, hands behind her back, her golden eyes scanning the room like she was still on patrol. Your implements were scanned, cleared for use. Josh popped open the case and exhaled in relief. His rolling pin was intact. So was the Parmesan brick, the jars of dried herbs. Even the small pouch of red pepper flakes survived. Zilaria entered with her ever-present datapad. The facility has been configured according to Earth culinary guidelines. With exceptions, Josh raised a brow. Exceptions. The request for a wood-fired oven was denied, Zara said. Open combustion violates urban safety protocols. Josh groaned. You can't make real Neapolitan pizza without high heat. It needs 850 Fahrenheit, at least. Zilaria blinked. That would destroy nutritional integrity. Our ovens cap at 450. It's not about nutrition, Josh said, rubbing his temples. It's about transformation. The dough, the cheese, the sauce, they all react to high heat. That's how you get flavor. You caramelize, you blister, you create crust. Bubbles. Zira remained unmoved. Your thermal unit is sufficient. Adjust accordingly. Josh muttered under his breath but got to work. He requested water, salt, olive oil. The flour and yeast he brought were still usable. He could work with this, as he mixed flour with warm water and yeast. A rhythm returned to his hands, the steady knead and fold of dough, becoming whole. The tension in his shoulders eased. This, he could do. The sauce came next. Synthesized tomatoes weren't ideal, but he added his dried basil and a pinch of salt. The aroma, even faint, cut through the sterile air. By the time his escorts returned, he had 4 pizza bases prepped. Not perfect, but close. His sauce simmered on the stove top, filling the air with Earth's most ancient scent. Home cooking. Nilari wrinkled her nose. The aroma is unusual. That's cooking, Josh said. Real food has smells. That's how it talks to you. Kaleria entered, dressed in elegant silver robes. The council is assembled. Bring your materials and follow us. Josh packed his ingredients carefully into containers. I need to cook it fresh. Pizza doesn't travel. A suitable appliance has been installed in the council chamber, Zara said. The council chamber was a circular arena, vast and white, with tiered seating rising like an amphitheater. Dozens of Zirians sat in identical uniforms, their expressions ranging from bored to vaguely curious. In the center, a sleek cooking station. The same thermal unit? Kaleria stepped forward. Esteemed council members, as part of our cultural exploration initiative, I present Josh Maxwell, Earth's culinary representative. He will demonstrate a traditional human food known as pizza. A few chuckles, a few frowns. Josh stepped up to the station and forced a smile. Thanks for having me. Let's get right to it. He started with the dough, stretching it into a circle. A few of the Zirians leaned forward slightly. The motion, unexpected. The shape's traditional, Josh said, spinning the dough gently into the air. Not required, but it helps, and it's fun. Fun is not a culinary variable, Nilari noted from her seat. Josh grinned and ignored her. He ladled sauce, added the mozzarella, and laid fresh basil on top. Then he slid the pizza into the thermal unit and turned the heat up as high as the alien tech would allow. A rich smell began to fill the chamber. Cheese melting, tomato bubbling, crust crisping. Josh turned to the audience. Food isn't just fuel, it's memory, emotion. People sit together and share it. They argue over toppings. They laugh. They fall in love. Your time is almost expired, Nilari warned. Josh ignored her and pulled the pizza out. It wasn't perfect, but it was golden, bubbling, and smelled divine. He sliced it carefully and plated a few wedges. Then he looked to his 3 escorts. Traditionally, it's shared. May I offer a sample? Zara was the first to accept. She picked up the slice awkwardly and sniffed it. Then, slowly, she took a bite and froze. Her pupils dilated. A flush of deeper violet bloomed across her cheekbones. Her hands trembled slightly. Nilari and Kaleria followed. Kaleria took a single delicate bite. Nilari nibbled cautiously. All 3 women went still, for a heartbeat. Then, Nilari gasped. Kaleria blinked rapidly. Her lips slightly parted. Zara stared at the slice like it had betrayed her by being too good to exist. This is... Kaleria began, then trailed off, seemingly unable to complete the sentence. Completely inappropriate. Nilari finished yet didn't stop eating. The sensory impact is overwhelming, Sarah said, her voice hoarse. Josh smiled. That's what food is supposed to do. One by one, the council members requested samples. The chamber filled with soft exclamations and murmurs of astonishment. And not a single piece remained uneaten. When it was over, Nilari stood, still holding her empty plate. The human will continue weekly demonstrations. Josh exhaled. Great. Just let me know what kind of oven I'll be Zilaria cut in smoothly. Your next session will be in 2 days. For a smaller audience, us three. For deeper analysis, Nilari added quickly. And security purposes, Zira finished, though her tone lacked its usual edge. Josh stared at them. Pizza diplomacy had begun, and the revolution was just getting started. Josh was fast asleep when the melodic door chimes startled him awake. He groaned, blinking at the unfamiliar ceiling. His quarters still glowed softly in white and silver tones. The digital clock on the wall read 007 in glowing violet numerals. "Who is it?" he called out, voice still hoarse. "Captain Zara," came the short reply. "Security inspection." Josh sat up, dragging on a t-shirt and running a hand through his hair. At midnight, the door slid open to reveal Zara in full uniform, posture sharp as ever. But something about her felt different. Her fingers twitched at her sides. Her jaw was tight. "Security protocols," she said, stepping inside. "Unscheduled, but authorized." Josh watched her sweep the room with her golden ice kitchenette, storage drawers, sleeping area. Then her gaze returned to the thermal unit in the kitchenette corner. "It's operational," she said. Josh raised an eyebrow. "Very. I smelled something earlier, during training simulations." Zara's words stumbled slightly in. Unusual sign of uncertainty from someone who usually barked orders like they were code. "I was testing new recipes," Josh said. "Leftovers are in the kitchen, if security requires full inspection." She approached with slow, measured steps. The container sat neatly on the counter. One held 2 slices of margarita pizza. The other, a white pizza with garlic oil and Zarian herbs. "This variation?" she asked, pointing to the pale one. "White pizza, no sauce, olive oil, herbs, cheese. It's about contrast, creamy and sharp, earthy and bright." Zara picked up a slice with surprising delicacy. She sniffed it first, then, as if steeling herself for battle, took a bite. Her reaction was instant. Her eyes widened, her shoulders loosened. A dark flush ran up her throat and across her face. She closed her eyes and swayed slightly where she stood. Josh leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Intensified sensory response. Zira opened her eyes, struggling to find words. "Yes, it produces a cascade, similar to the first sample, but stronger. It's called delicious," Josh said softly. She took another bite, chewing slowly, eyes locked on his. Her gaze was no longer sharp and assessing. It was curious, vulnerable. This sensation, the combination of textures, warm, crisp, soft. Her voice trailed off. "You're feeling," Josh said. She didn't respond, just finished the slice, with careful precision, like it was sacred. A long silence passed. "I should complete the inspection," she said finally, straightening her shoulders. "Your sanitation chamber?" "Down the hall," Josh said, pointing. "Unless you want to confiscate more evidence." She nodded curtly and disappeared for a moment. Josh chuckled to himself, still stunned at how fast things were shifting. When Zara returned, she stood at the door without moving. "This inspection will need to be repeated." "How often?" Josh asked. "Nightly," she said. Then, after a pause, "For security consistency." He smirked. "Of course, I'll keep leftovers warm." She hesitated. Then, with a voice nearly too low to hear, added, "For protocol integrity. I would appreciate a demonstration of additional flavors." He gave a small bow. "Captain, it would be my honor." The door closed behind her, and Josh was left staring at it, smiling like an idiot. He didn't have long to enjoy the quiet. By morning, a second chime echoed through the quarters, this one more polite, less urgent. Josh opened the door, expecting another security officer. Instead, he found Nilari. Her braid crown was as immaculate as ever, but she carried a data pad and a new scanner. Her expression was carefully neutral. "Good morning," she said. I require documentation of your preparation techniques. For academic purposes. Josh stepped aside. By all means, science first. She moved inside like a surgeon, precise, clinical, already scanning his flower bin before she spoke again. This substance is inconsistent. Microbial, wild yeast strains, bacterial presence. That's what makes it work, Josh explained, already pulling ingredients onto the counter. Fermentation, flavor. Nature knows what it's doing. Her scanner hovered over his hands. Your technique is tactile, inconsistent. It's called kneading, he said, smiling. I feel, when it's right. Machines can't replace instinct. Inconvenient, she murmured, but didn't move. Josh noticed she was watching his hands closely. Want to try? Her eyes snapped up. That would compromise objectivity. Science is about experimentation, Josh said, stepping aside. After a long pause, Zilaria set her scanner down and approached the bowl of dough. Tentatively, she pressed her fingers into the soft mixture. Her expression changed instantly. Wonder, curiosity, a hint of awe. It transforms, she whispered. That's gluten developing from flour and water. Proteins linked together. That structure lets it rise. She didn't stop kneading. Fascinating, she murmured again, her violet skin deepening in color. By the time they prepped a basic test pizza, she was completely absorbed. When the scent of melting cheese and warm dough filled the room, her focus narrowed to a single point. Josh sliced it and handed her a small piece. Her first bite brought an audible gasp. The contrast, the crust, and the center. The softness, the heat, the oil, the basil. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed. Josh leaned on the counter. Preliminary data collected. She nodded slowly. For further analysis, I will require additional sessions. For science, he agreed with a grin. She left after composing herself, though not without stealing one last glance at the crust cooling on the tray. Josh cleaned up the kitchen with a quiet smile. To visits, two very different reactions, and something told him the third one wasn't far behind. Josh had just pulled a bubbling experimental pizza out of the thermal unit, his best attempt yet at a quattro formaggi, when the door chimed again. This time, it wasn't melodic or curt. It was ceremonial. 3 notes, high, low, high. Josh froze. He wiped his hands on a towel and opened the door. Standing in the hallway was Zilaria, heir apparent to the Zarian High Council. Today, however, she didn't arrive flanked by guards or draped in heavy robes. She wore simple but regal clothing, silver-lined robes with her white blonde hair pulled back into a sleek, elegant ponytail. If not for the subtle shimmer of her skin and the soft glow of her amber eyes, she might have passed for any curious visitor. I trust I'm not interrupting, she said. Not at all, Josh replied, stepping aside. I was just experimenting with some fusion ideas. Zilaria stepped in like she was touring foreign territory, her gaze sweeping across the kitchen with studied interest. She paused before the counter, where 3 test pizzas cooled under heat lamps. I have been assigned to collect further samples, she said calmly. For council evaluation. Of course, Josh said with a smile. All in the name of diplomacy. He gestured to the test pizzas. This one's classic pepperoni. That's quattro. Formaggi for cheese. And this one, he pointed to a slightly green-tinged slice, is a Zarian fusion. I used your botanical garden herbs, the purple ones with the anise aroma. Zilaria raised a brow. You combined earth cuisine with Zarian native flora. Josh shrugged. Seemed fitting. Fusion goes both ways, doesn't it? She picked up a slice of the fusion pizza with royal precision. No hesitation, just curiosity and confidence. Her first bite was small, controlled. Then she froze. Her posture shifted just slightly. Her breath hitched. Her eyes fluttered shut, just for a moment. When she opened them again, her gaze was different, Less distant, less diplomatic. This flavor combination, she began. It activates known sensory pathways from Zarian childhood nourishment, but overlays them with unknown textures. Heat, salt, creaminess. It's disruptive, in a good way. Josh smiled. Disruptive's kind of my thing. She took another bite larger, this time, and leaned against the counter like the formality was melting from her bones. The contrast between expectation and sensation, the familiar and the alien. It reminds me of memory. He watched her closely. You're not just analyzing it, are you? Zilaria paused. You mean, enjoying it? Yes? She nodded slowly. I believe I am. He moved toward the counter and cut 2 slices of the quattro formaggi. If you liked that one, wait until you try this. She accepted the slice, like it was a sacred offering. Her expression turned from regal to radiant after the first bite. This is indulgent, she said. It lingers. It floods the mind. Josh folded his arms. Hard to imagine someone as composed as you ever. Indulging. She smiled faintly. You assume Zarian leadership is devoid of pleasure. Your nutrient cubes kind of give that impression. We've valued efficiency over experience for centuries, she said. But experience is proving persuasive. Josh watched her finish the slice, completely at ease now. I've got more ideas, if you're interested. Her amber eyes locked with his. I will oversee further sessions, personally, for quality control, Josh asked. For cultural context, she corrected, voice soft. She glanced around the kitchen once more, then met his eyes again. You're not what I expected. Most people aren't, Josh said. But that's what makes life interesting. She moved to the door, but before exiting, she turned back. Keep experimenting, she said. I want to see what happens when boundaries are removed. He gave a small bow. Then you're going to love next week's truffle mushroom pizza. As the door closed behind her, Josh stared at it for a moment, heart racing. 3 Zarian women, 3 slices of transformation, and none of them were coming back. Just for pizza. 3 days into his so-called cultural exchange, Josh Maxwell had become the hottest underground sensation on Zilaria. 7, and he didn't even have a proper oven. His kitchen had been quietly upgraded. His food declared diplomatically essential, and his evenings were now routinely booked by midnight inspections, Zilaria's scientific observation, and Zilaria's personal oversight. They all claimed professional reasons. None of them fooled him anymore, and he wasn't complaining. The problem was, the secret was out. It started with a delivery aide who accidentally left behind a cube container. One Josh later found had been rigged with a tiny sampling spoon and a discreet note. My sister's in the Ministry of Science. She says you changed her life. Could I try something? Then came a shy engineer who caught him in the corridor and stammered. Your compound this Parmesan. It made me feel things I've never thought possible. By the end of the week, there were rumors swirling throughout the capital that a human had reawakened long-dormant Zarian emotions, that his food produced euphoric sensory states, that the council was monitoring him not for protection, but because they were addicted. He thought it was a joke, until he found a small crowd of high-ranking Zarians loitering outside his quarters, pretending to inspect the walls. They cleared, like startled birds when Zilaria arrived. You've created a problem, she said, marching inside, braid crown glinting under the hallway lights. Josh raised an eyebrow. You don't look upset. I'm not, she admitted. I'm confused, fascinated, mildly terrified. He handed her a slice of his latest test, pizza tomato, fig, sharp cheese, and Zarian garden herbs. Zilaria took one bite and sat down without a word. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. We ran neurochemical scans on the council after your last presentation, and there's been a significant reactivation of suppressed neurological clusters, emotive centers, sensory integration pathways. even hormonal triggers, associated with desire and memory. So, pizza made your government feel things again. Nilari nodded. Zirian society has optimized for productivity and control for centuries. We never considered the consequences of eliminating pleasure. Now that it's returning, people want more, too much more. Council ministers have started forming underground groups, sharing memory recipes, recreating crusts, exchanging, she whispered, mozzarella. Josh chuckled. You're telling me there's a black market for cheese? We're calling it the cult of sacred dough, Nilari said, deadpan. It's spreading fast. Security can't stop it. Just then, the comm panel buzzed. Zera. Double quotes emergency. Incoming. Transmission from the High Council. You're to cease all culinary activity immediately. Council meeting in 1 hour. Josh felt a cold knot in his stomach. Nilari stood. They're scared. Of pizza, he said. Double quotes. No. Of what it's unlocking. You've triggered something they can't control. Zilaria arrived minutes later, robes more severe than usual. You're not being arrested, she said, but the situation has escalated. Josh looked at the two women, one political, one scientific end, the tension written across both of their faces. Do I get to explain myself? You'll speak, Zilaria said. But they've already decided. They want to shut it down. Josh exhaled slowly, nodded, and walked with them toward the council chamber. Inside, the mood was colder than before. Dozens of Zarian leaders watched him like he was both a prophet and a pathogen. Zilaria took her seat at the front. Zara stood at the edge, guarding the doors. Nilari remained beside him, still clutching her pad but no longer recording. Josh stepped forward, heart pounding. I'm not here to threaten your culture, he said, voice clear. I'm not trying to manipulate or undermine anything. Silence. I'm just a chef. I make food. And on Earth, food isn't just survival. It's comfort. It's celebration. It's connection. A murmur. I didn't come here to start a revolution. But maybe your people were ready for one. One older counselor stood. You've reawakened things we buried for a reason. Emotion creates chaos. We chose peace. Josh nodded. But peace without joy, is that truly living? The council buzzed. Whispers broke out. Then Zara stepped forward. I volunteered for this mission because I believed Earth's people were weak, distracted by primitive comforts. But I've eaten his food. I've felt more in 3 days than in 30 years of military service. Another gasp. Then Nilari spoke, her voice firm. The data is clear. The reactivated pathways bring unpredictability, also creativity, empathy, connection. These are not liabilities, they're possibilities. Finally, Zilaria stood. If our society must evolve again, then let it be toward wholeness. Not perfection, but balance. Josh met her gaze. She didn't look away. A long silence fell. Then a new voice spoke, one of the youngest counselors. Her plate still bore a crumb from an earlier tasting. I propose we reclassify human cuisine not as threat, but as cultural therapy. Gasps. Again. Then nods. One by one. The council agreed. Josh didn't smile. He exhaled deep and slow. He had just saved pizza on an alien world. As the meeting adjourned, and the council filed out, Zara approached him, her voice low. You may continue cooking. Nilari joined them, under supervision, of course. Zilaria was last. She placed a hand on his arm, brief, but charged, and with expanded audience access. Josh nodded slowly. I'll need a better oven. Zara smirked. You'll have one by tomorrow.